I'm a Youth Assembly member. Lord Empey was a senior negotiator for the Ulster Unionist Party in the multi-party talks and in the First Executive. He served as Minister of Enterprise, Trade and Investment. Please welcome Lord Empey.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Isn't it wonderful to see the young people here today? Not only those who performed us, those from the Assembly, but they are the second generation that has grown up in this country who have no working knowledge of what violence and our troubles meant. Isn't that terrific? And if there's nothing else, that it has achieved, that in and of itself is a victory. I think that, as Billy said in his opening remarks, he would have preferred not to have been at this platform today. I find myself in similar circumstances. I would much prefer David Trimble was here, and I'm delighted to see Lady Daphne and members of the family are with us this afternoon. I suppose we can all have reflections of what was a very long process. It's very hard to explain to people who haven't been through these what it actually means and what it actually does day to day. It did last 2 years, but that, of course, was not the whole story, because there had been a number of initiatives beforehand, going back to Albert Reynolds, Brooke Mayhew and all of that. So by the time we came to the Mitchell process, we had already experienced quite a lot of negotiations. And I think people maybe find it difficult to understand when you have opponents in politics. You perhaps glare at each other across a council chamber or a TV studio, but when you're actually dealing with what I call the grunt work of negotiations, going on day after day after day over enormously great detail of minutiae, you do begin to get the view from another person's lens, through another person's lens. And that helps when you're trying to find something that will work. And first of all, there's going to be a row over those bacon rolls. We didn't get any offers of bacon rolls after. So, you know, you can sort of make a point about how you're treated in any society, and we can all stand back and say, we didn't get this or we didn't get that. But I think the way one needs to look at it from now on is, what can we do? What can we contribute? The agreement isn't and wasn't perfect. There's absolutely no doubt about that. It has flaws, and we have to remember there were a number of people, significant number of people in the community who didn't vote for it and who didn't agree with it, who found it. There were moral issues, they had huge challenges. So we must also remember those who didn't agree as well as those who did. But I do agree very strongly with what Mark said. The one thing that stands out about this agreement, amongst others, is the fact that it was endorsed by the people before it was implemented. And that gave it a strength and a legitimacy which very few other have. Now, in this place, there is a division of whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But internationally, I can tell you that it is very widely regarded around the world as a significant achievement. In this building 1 week ago, upstairs, I had to speak, along with others, to a delegation from Ethiopia, who had come all the way here to learn about our process. Last year, I spoke to delegates from the Republic of Georgia about their difficulties. Before Christmas, we spoke to people from Thailand, all these generals who had come in because they were looking for a mechanism to try and find a resolution to their troubles. So we must not assume that we're simply an independent, freestanding unit on our own. The world is full of conflict, and anything and any process that can be adapted and where people can learn, I think we have an opportunity to try and tell them and explain to them how we got to where we were. And at the end of the day, we could argue over all sorts of things that are wrong and aren't right. And indeed, my fear is, at the present moment, we're in danger of repeating some of our mistakes again in the present circumstances, because we should know in these islands, in the long run, boycott doesn't work, and the vacuum will be filled by others. So I would urge people to seriously reflect on that. But do remember, is there something we can contribute to people in other parts of the world to help them in their conflict as we work hard to try and resolve the unfinished business of our own conflict? So I would conclude by wishing and reflecting on those who aren't with us, who made such substantial contributions, and also the fact that we find ourselves with these two generations growing up not knowing the trouble that we had to go through and the sacrifices that were made in those days. So let's take at least some heart from the fact that we can be an example to others. We still have to work hard. We've unfinished business. But the one thing that is very clear to me, only participation and working on behalf of the people. And if you're not prepared to do it in the middle of the most economic crisis that many families have had to endure, if you're not prepared to do it now, when are you prepared to do it? Keep working. Thank you.